Imagine waking up to discover that 185,000 soldiers were killed in a single night by an angel. This biblical story is one of the most mysterious and astonishing ever recorded. Today, you're going to find out how a single angel wiped out an entire army. And the truth behind this event might just surprise you. Jerusalem was in a critical situation. The mighty Assyrian Empire, led by Sennacherib, was marching victoriously, conquering city after city. It was the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, and Judah had already lost many fortified cities. The capital was surrounded, and fear hung heavy in the air. The Assyrian army was notorious for its brutality and military efficiency, leaving a trail of destruction wherever it went. For the people of Jerusalem, it felt like the end was near. Sennacherib didn't just lay siege to the city, he made it a point to humiliate and intimidate. He sent messengers to proclaim before the walls that not even the God of Israel could save the people from this siege. His words were as sharp as swords, directly attacking the faith of the people and their trust in Hezekiah. Fear was palpable. Some began to question if there was any hope at all. How could they resist such a powerful empire? Day by day, the situation grew worse. The city's resources were dwindling, and the morale of the defenders was shaken. Sennacherib flaunted his superiority, reminding them of the other nations he had already crushed, even those who trusted in their own gods. What makes you think your God is any different? This cruel question echoed through the walls. Yet, Hezekiah did not give in to the pressure. The king of Judah knew he couldn't rely on his military strength. His only option was to seek divine help. Hezekiah went up to the temple with a heavy heart and a troubled soul, presenting before God the threatening letter from Sennacherib. He knew that only a miracle could save his people. There was no other solution. Trusting completely in God's intervention was essential. Hezekiah didn't face this challenge alone. He sought guidance from the prophet Isaiah, who brought a message of hope. God was aware of the situation and would not allow the enemy to prevail. To Hezekiah and the people, those words were like refreshing water in a desert. But how would it happen? What kind of divine intervention could possibly change such a desperate situation? The contrast between Assyria's military power and Jerusalem's apparent weakness was stark. Sennacherib commanded the largest army of the time, while Hezekiah had only his faith to rely on. It was an uneven battle from a human perspective, but God already had a plan in place. While the Assyrians prepared to destroy the city, heaven was orchestrating something unimaginable. The tension was constant. Nights were long, and the sentries remained vigilant, expecting the worst at any moment. Judah's soldiers were exhausted, and the inhabitants feared for their families' futures. But God's silence did not mean inactivity. He was about to act in a way that would become a landmark in the history of his people. Meanwhile, Sennacherib continued his arrogant discourse, confident in his impending victory. The Assyrian king had no doubt that he would soon set foot in Judah's capital. To him, the God of Israel was no different from the other defeated gods. His confidence in his own strength seemed unshakable, but he had no idea he was challenging the Creator himself. Hezekiah's prayer echoed through the palace corridors. He knew that only a miracle could prevent Jerusalem's fall. His subjects waited anxiously, some still fearful, but others strengthened by their faith in the God of their ancestors. There wasn't much more to do but wait and trust. No one could have imagined that God was preparing something so extraordinary that it would change the course of history. Hezekiah, steadfast in faith, awaited an answer. And when all seemed lost, the answer came. God's word, delivered through Isaiah, was clear. The enemy would not enter the city or shoot a single arrow there. God himself would fight for Jerusalem. The impossible was about to unfold. Night fell over the Assyrian camp. It was just another routine night for the soldiers, resting after a day of preparations for the final attack on Jerusalem. Little did they know that this would not be just another night, but the moment when the impossible would happen. While they slept, something supernatural began to unfold. The besieged city waited anxiously, unaware that God had already sent his celestial agent to intervene. In the dead of night, the angel of the Lord descended upon the enemy camp. There was no noise, no battle. No arrows were shot, and no swords were drawn. Death came silently but devastatingly. As the sun began to rise, its first rays revealed a horrifying scene. Bodies lying everywhere. 185,000 Assyrian soldiers lay dead, and the once invincible army was now reduced to a mass of corpses. God's power manifested in a way beyond human comprehension. The biblical text does not detail how the angel carried out such destruction, but the impact was undeniable. The one who rose against God's people was now crushed. Sennacherib's pride was shattered in a single night. There was no war, no fight, just direct divine intervention, fulfilling the promise made to Hezekiah through Isaiah. When Jerusalem's soldiers cautiously ventured out to see what had happened, the sight was unimaginable. The ground was littered with bodies, and the air was thick with the stench of death. At first, many couldn't believe their eyes. How had such a powerful army been annihilated without a single arrow shot from the city? The answer was clear. God had personally intervened, sending his angel to fight for Judah. The survivors, terrified and bewildered, abandoned their positions and fled. Those who thought they would invade Jerusalem the next day were now running for their lives. Sennacherib, left with no choice, returned humiliated to Nineveh. The man who had challenged the God of Israel was now a defeated king, not by human military force, but by divine intervention that no one could have foreseen. For the people of Jerusalem, the victory was an undeniable miracle. For days, stories of what had happened spread quickly. How could an angel have wiped out an entire army? For believers, there was no doubt. God had answered Hezekiah's prayers and demonstrated his power in an indisputable way. The nation's faith was revitalized, and confidence in the Lord grew like never before. But as with any divine intervention, the purpose went beyond military victory. God didn't just save Jerusalem, he proved that his word remains steadfast against any threat. Challenges may seem insurmountable, but when God decides to act, no human force can stand in the way. What appeared to be an imminent defeat turned into a memorable victory that would be remembered for generations. Many scholars still debate the identity of this angel and how he could have caused such destruction. Some believe it was the very angel of the Lord, a special manifestation of God's presence. Others speculate about diseases or natural phenomena triggered by supernatural intervention. However, the biblical text is clear. It was the angel sent by God who executed judgment. Regardless of the means, the fact remains that the enemy army was completely annihilated. The victory brought temporary peace to Jerusalem, but also sent a clear message to the surrounding nations. The God of Israel is not a man-made idol. He is living, powerful, and capable of doing the impossible for those who trust in him. The promises given by Isaiah were fulfilled with astonishing precision, and no one doubted the power of Hezekiah's God anymore. This episode became one of the most remarkable moments in biblical history, demonstrating that military strength is nothing compared to God's power. Jerusalem's victory over Sennacherib's army became a symbol of faith and trust in the Lord. When God decides to act, even the greatest armies bow before his will. If this story is already surprising you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more content like this. And don't forget to leave your like to help spread this message to more people. The figure of the angel who destroyed the Assyrian army continues to spark curiosity to this day. The Bible describes this being as the angel of the Lord. But who exactly was he? This question has intrigued scholars and Bible readers for centuries. Some believe that this angel was not just any celestial being, but a special manifestation of God's presence. Others argue that it could have been Christ himself in a pre-incarnate form. One text that supports this idea is Psalm 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Here, the term angel of the Lord seems to indicate a direct and special protective figure, someone beyond a mere heavenly messenger. In several Old Testament passages, the angel of the Lord speaks in the first person as if he were God himself, raising the possibility that this was a theophany, a divine appearance. Another verse that bolsters this interpretation is Exodus 23:20, where God says, "See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared." This angelic figure is not just a servant, but someone who carries divine authority and speaks on God's behalf. This strengthens the idea that the angel who destroyed the Assyrian army might have a deeper and more complex identity than initially perceived. On the other hand, some believe that the angel in question was a powerful created being, like the archangels Michael or Gabriel. We know that angels have specific roles and extraordinary powers, but no other biblical account attributes such a devastating act to them as what occurred that night. Michael is known as the leader of the heavenly armies, but his name is not directly mentioned here. What we do know for sure is that the angel did not act on his own. The Bible states that he was sent by God, indicating that he was under the direct command of the Almighty. This shows that regardless of his exact identity, he was an instrument of divine will. God decided to intervene personally in history, displaying his power unmistakably. What makes this intervention even more fascinating is that a single angel was enough to destroy an entire army. This not only reveals the magnitude of divine power, but also the precision and efficiency of heavenly intervention. God didn't need an entire battalion of angels to accomplish his purpose. A single envoy was sufficient. The mystery surrounding the angel's identity invites deeper reflection. Perhaps by trying too hard to define who he was, we are missing the central point of the story. The focus is not so much on the angelic figure itself, but on the God who sent this spectacular intervention. The main message is that the Lord of Hosts is in control and can act supernaturally to protect his own. This story also teaches that in moments of great danger, God has resources beyond our imagination. The intervention may not come in the way we expect, but it will come at the right time and in the right way. The angel who destroyed the Assyrian army symbolizes God's ability to overcome any obstacle, even when it seems there's no way out. The lesson here is clear. As much as we try to rationalize and comprehend God's mysteries, not everything fits within our limited understanding. What we can do is trust that just as he sent an angel to save Jerusalem, he can also provide unimaginable resources for our personal battles. The story of the angel who killed 185,000 soldiers is not just a historical record, but a powerful reminder that when God decides to act, no human force can withstand it. This prompts reflection. In our daily struggles, are we relying on our own strength or waiting for divine intervention? The devastation of the Assyrian army was a brutal blow to the mighty empire of Sennacherib. Accustomed to marching victoriously through foreign lands, the Assyrian king never imagined he would face such resistance in Jerusalem, much less that his defeat would come at the hands of a single angel sent by God. The fall of 185,000 soldiers in one night deeply shook the empire's military structure and morale. When Sennacherib returned to Nineveh, he carried not only the humiliation of an inexplicable defeat, but also the weight of a wounded empire. He knew that this event marked a turning point in his military career. For a man who considered himself invincible, accepting that a supernatural being had decimated his army was a direct blow to his pride. His return to Nineveh was quiet and tense. The news spread rapidly. Other nations, once terrified of Assyria and its crushing force, now looked on with caution and curiosity. The burning question circulating among neighboring kingdoms was simple. How did Jerusalem, a relatively small and weakened city, manage to defeat one of the greatest armies of the time? The answer defied logic or reason. It was a miracle. And that made all the difference. Even within Assyria, people began questioning the authority and strength of their king. How could he lead an empire if he couldn't even secure victory against a besieged city? Confidence in Assyria's military power began to waver, and some political leaders grew restless. The fear of new rebellions was real. Sennacherib's power was no longer unquestionable. And as if the humiliation wasn't enough, Sennacherib's life took a tragic turn. Not long after his return to the capital, he was assassinated by his own sons while worshipping in the temple of Nisroch, his god. The man who had scorned the God of Israel met his end disgracefully, killed in his own sanctuary. Isaiah's prophecy was fulfilled with chilling accuracy. The fact that Sennacherib was killed in the temple also raises intriguing questions. The king who mocked the power of God met his end while seeking protection and guidance from his idol. This highlights the impotence of human-made gods in the face of the living God's majesty. No pagan ritual could save the Assyrian king from his tragic fate. For the people of Judah, Sennacherib's fall was confirmation of God's faithfulness. Not only was the Assyrian army destroyed, but the arrogant king who threatened them was also punished. It was proof that the Lord didn't just protect Jerusalem, but also avenged the pride of those who mocked his power. For Hezekiah and his people, this meant more than a military victory. It was a clear demonstration that God honors those who trust in him. This event also reshaped the region's political landscape. With Assyria weakened and Sennacherib out of the picture, other peoples began reorganizing themselves. The Assyrian dynasty faced internal instability, and the empire's power started to gradually decline. The divine intervention in Jerusalem thus had political and social repercussions far beyond Judah's borders. The lesson left for future generations was clear. Even the most powerful kingdoms can crumble when they challenge the true God. Human pride cannot withstand divine intervention. For the surrounding peoples, the story of the Assyrian army's destruction was a powerful testimony of what happens when someone rises against God's people. Jerusalem's victory not only saved the city, but also reshaped the balance of power in the region. The fear that the Assyrian Empire once inspired began to dissipate, while faith in the God of Israel grew stronger. It was as if heaven itself had shown that military might is nothing in the face of divine sovereignty. The story of the angel annihilating the Assyrian army is one of the Bible's most impressive displays of God's supernatural power. It challenges us to rethink our limitations and how we perceive seemingly insurmountable problems. After all, if God could deliver Jerusalem from an entire army with a single intervention, what else can he do for those who trust in him? The account in 2 Kings 19:35 is straightforward. That night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. The impact of this verse goes beyond physical destruction. It makes us reflect on the nature of God. He is powerful enough to act supernaturally when all human possibilities are exhausted. This story challenges us to think about our own faith. How often do we find ourselves surrounded and without a way out? Many times, we try to fight with our own strength, forgetting that God has resources beyond our understanding. The angel's intervention that night shows that the Lord is neither distant nor indifferent to the dangers we face. The promise from Psalm 91:11 resonates strongly, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." This is not just a beautiful phrase, but a truth that was tangibly demonstrated in Jerusalem's story. God sent his angel to fight for those who trusted in him. And this doesn't just apply to the past. He remains a protective God, even today. This narrative also teaches us about the value of sincere prayer. Hezekiah didn't seek political or military alliances when he found himself surrounded. He sought God, and God responded supernaturally. Often, we underestimate the power of a genuine prayer, thinking our words have little impact. But this story proves that the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective, James 5:16. Another key point is the contrast between human power and divine power. Sennacherib relied on his military might, while Hezekiah placed his trust in the Lord. The result was that the most formidable army of the time was instantly wiped out, while Jerusalem remained untouched. This teaches us that human pride will never prevail against God's sovereignty. In our own struggles, do we have the same confidence that Hezekiah had? When problems seem bigger than our abilities, do we pray and trust God, or do we panic, trying to fix everything ourselves? The Bible invites us to surrender our battles to the Lord, for He is an expert in turning imminent defeats into surprising victories. God's supernatural power is not limited to grand interventions. He acts daily, protecting, guiding, and strengthening those who trust in Him. The presence of angels around us, as mentioned in Psalm 34:7, remains a reality. Though we may not always witness it as clearly as Jerusalem did, God is present, ready to deliver us from the traps we face. The great lesson from this story is that what seems impossible to man is possible to God. When everything appears lost, He can intervene in ways we never imagined. Often, we focus so much on the threat in front of us that we forget the God who is above all things. When we hand over our struggles to Him, we can rest assured that His power is unmatched. The story of the angel who killed 185,000 soldiers is not just a historical account. It's a constant reminder that no matter how daunting the challenges, God always has the final say. Military power, arrogance, and self-confidence fell apart in the face of divine intervention. And so it is for those who face giants. With God on our side, no battle is lost. If you're facing a seemingly impossible challenge, remember, the God who sent an angel to protect Jerusalem is still powerful and active today. Pray with faith, trust in God, and know that He can make the impossible happen. If this video inspired you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to keep learning about God's miracles. And don't forget to leave a like to help this message reach more people. Now tell me in the comments, what impressed you most about this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. God bless you.